Hey everyone, Dean Willett with RETV. Today I'm joined by Michael McClure, President and CEO of Professional One Franchising. And Michael has a very unique business model we're going to talk about today.
Greetings, I'm the artificial intelligence who will be assisting you.
System activated.
Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Dean. I really appreciate coming on.
For those who don't know about Professional One, you have a unique entry for real estate agents to join your brokerage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time studying the industry, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this stuff in more detail in a moment, but we see the biggest problem of all as being simply too low a barrier to entry into the real estate industry. So what we did is we looked around, saw what other people were doing, or in most cases weren't doing, and we sort of created our own barrier to entry. And you can read all the details in a number of blog posts we've written, but the main barrier to entry is that we want our agents to have one of the following: either a college degree or 5 years of documented full-time experience in real estate. Those are the big things.
Now, do you have any exceptions to that 5 years for number of transactions?
Well, Dean, being very candid, we haven't had enough experience with it yet to make those determinations. We came up with that. I still remember the date. It was on or about April 15th. And so far, we haven't had anyone approach us who didn't satisfy those requirements. So we really haven't had to figure that out yet. Thinking on the fly, I guess my response to that is that we would make exceptions for exceptional people, but we'd like to have that as our target.
Now, personally myself, I'm only in my third year of real estate, and I'll admit I'm amazed at how little I actually needed to know to get my real estate license and how easy it was. And I got thrown out into the field as a full-time agent right away, and I realized that I wasn't really prepared for what I was doing. Now, is this why you came up with this business model for situations like that?
There were actually several reasons, but that probably is the biggest one, because we see time and again, and I've owned this business for, I'm in my 7th year now, and I sort of started off the way that most companies do. I was basically like everybody else. We had a huge relocation department, which made us a lot of money. We ended up losing that. I won't go into that story, but along that way, I had a lot of experience with new agents and training new agents, and what I found was that it was incredibly inefficient, and from a financial perspective, it was pretty disastrous. And so we kind of got to this place, which is not only were we just fed up with the level of professionalism or the lack thereof in real estate, we thought we just need more experienced people, because from a purely business perspective, it just makes more sense. There's just so much that goes into training agents, and what we found also is that you spend all this time training people, and then they get to the point where they figure the business out, and then they go somewhere else because they can get a better commission split with somebody else. They didn't really care about the fact that we had made major investment in them, and that was very frustrating. And so it was a convergence of these factors that caused us to do that.
One of the numbers, I don't have it in front of me, but the NAR puts out is renewal rates, and for new agents, the renewal rate after 2 years is minuscule compared to, I think, what it should be. Do you think that's a direct reflection in a problem in our system as far as preparing agents, or do you think that is more of, it's just such a low bar to get in that you're most likely going to lose a bunch of those?
Well, I think it's both of those things. I mean, I keep coming back to this low barrier to entry, and if you followed me on Twitter primarily over the course of the last year or year and a half, this is what I talk about constantly, and you're probably aware that we have this RTV on the radio show that Jay was just on a couple days ago, and that RTV stands for Raise the Bar. And I think we just get so many problems because, as you just said yourself, it was so easy to get a real estate license. When I got my license, I was honestly shocked. I thought it was so simple, and I know it varies by state, but I can tell you that in Michigan, it is so simple to get a license, it's criminal. So you get all these people who do it meaning get a license because it's easy money and it's easy to get in. And so you just have all these negative side effects that result from that in terms of low professionalism, really poor client representation, all kinds of, I mean, I've seen fraud. I could tell you stories you wouldn't believe, and some of these things just happened literally in the last few months. And all of this stuff just traces back to, I just think it's too easy for people to get into the business. It's just that simple.
So what's the answer here? We see your brokerage and what you're doing in this unique situation, but that doesn't help a new guy who is looking to get involved. And we do want new, young, energized people in the business, I think, who are going to bring a professional, attitude towards the business. So what's the answer as far as new agents?
That's a great question, and it's funny because without going off on a 30-minute tangent, which I know you don't want to hear, but we started this whole RTB. I don't want to say we started it. I didn't start it, but we really started pushing the ball on it about a year ago, and I was very naive and very idealistic, and I thought, hey, I can be a guy who helps change an industry. And what I learned very quickly is that I'm not going to be the guy to change an industry. There's simply too much. There's too much in the way of predetermined mindsets and too much history, and the industry is just too big. It's like a super tanker that I can't turn. And so I kind of got to this place after pushing that rock up that hill for 6 months or so. I thought, I can't be the guy to save this industry. And so now I just have to focus on doing what's best for me and my business, and really, most importantly, my clients. But to answer your question more specifically, I guess it's going to have to be the other companies that don't have the high barrier to entry. It will be the ones to train the agents, I guess. I mean, to me, it really goes back to if we had higher standards, we'd have a higher caliber of person coming into the industry, and those are the people who I would be delighted to help from day one. So it's a catch-22. Either you raise the bar as an industry in total, which I just don't think is going to happen, or you sort of remove yourself from that process and just focus on your own business and your own clients, which is what we've decided to do. And I'm not in any way suggesting that we don't value new people, and I totally agree with what you just said. We do need new people coming into the industry. There's all kinds of demographic stats about the number of people in the business who are over the age of 60 or 65, and something like 50% of the current industry is going to be gone in 10 years, and clearly we need new blood. But there just isn't an obvious solution to me on that level.
What type of reception have you seen from clients as far as when you're sitting down, your agent's doing listing presentations? Do you use this as one of your business pitches? Use us because we have these higher standards? Absolutely. And if I wrote a blog post, which I don't remember the exact title of it, but it's if you Googled branding differentiation, I wrote this blog post about which really explains why we're doing what we're doing. And that is really the biggest point of all, is that we believe that over time, the public, is going to more and more move in the direction of professionalism in real estate, simply because all the Harris polls that show 30 years of terrible results for real estate and other things I've read about just cultural trends. I think the public's just fed up with real estate, the status quo of real estate. That's one of the things I love about Jay Thompson and Thompson's Realty, is that I know we're on the same page. We just had this conversation again 3 days ago. I asked Jay straight up. I said, "Who's your client? Is it your agents, or is it your buyers and sellers?" And I can quote him almost verbatim. He said, "Well, clearly the agents are the lifeblood of our brokerage. We love our agents. They're our entire business. We wouldn't exist without them. But at the end of the day, it's the buyers and sellers that matter the most." So, I was really encouraged by the fact that Jay said that, because that's exactly how we feel. And that's a very long way of answering your question. But yes, absolutely. We've seen that. And interestingly, even before we created this barrier to entry, this was our emphasis, even though we didn't have a specific barrier to entry. So the reason our company is called Professional One is because we wanted to focus that whole professionalism angle, because we knew that was critical looking into the future for the industry. I came from a political background. I did that for over a decade before I got into real estate. And, when I talk to my old buddies, I talk to them often, they say, how do you like real estate? I'm like, I absolutely love real estate. The thing I like least about my business is dealing with other real estate agents. I don't mean to interrupt you, but thank you for saying that, because that's exactly how I feel. And let me just go off on a tiny sidebar here.
I've been in real estate for 20 years. This is my 20th year. I was a CPA before that, and I did that for 10 years, and I worked for the firm that I think is the best accounting firm in the world, Price Waterhouse. And it was a super professional environment as a CPA. Like I said, I've been in real estate for 20 years. I'm still not used to it. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I actually stopped selling actively. I still do it occasionally when I'm required to, but I gave it up for the exact same reason you just said. I could no longer deal with the average agent because I was just horrified by what I saw.
I mean, what other profession out there is there where, you could call somebody, they don't call you back, you leave a message, they don't return a phone call, and here they are, they're supposed to be helping their, the owner of the house sell the house, and you can't even get a showing out of it.
Well, not only that, but, Dean, this is really what drives me the most, is the public just doesn't understand how bad it is. Now, I would love your input on that, but, I'm just mortified by the things that I see day in and day out and day in and day out. And I get reactions from people when I say that. They either think I'm an extremist or that I'm just unrealistic, or I don't know what they think of me, quite frankly. But all I know is what I see. And what I see is just a level of professionalism that is absolutely staggering in terms of how bad it is. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And, I complain about other agents, but in a way I almost really shouldn't. Because I bet you at least a third of my business in the last year has come from people who had, within the last 2 months, worked with another agent. They weren't happy. They kept calling agents. They got to me. I returned phone calls. I followed up with them, and they were thrilled.
Yeah, that's the silver lining. You're absolutely correct. And on that level, it's a huge advantage for someone like you, who's a good agent, and for Jay Thompson, and I'm sure the caliber of the people that he would attract. But the other side of the coin, of course, is the fact that you then have to go out and do a deal with somebody else on the other side who can make your life miserable. And the unfortunate reality is this. I mean, let's be really honest. My view is that most clients are influenced by how the deal winds up. Meaning, you could do an absolutely extraordinary job. You could serve them like nobody else. But if the other agent does a terrible job and the closing doesn't go well, they don't do their job, they don't handle the title company or escrow or whatever you call it in Arizona, it reflects back on you, even when they know it wasn't your fault. I've just seen it in people's eyes. It's like, why is this closing such a disaster? And you can't sit there in a closing room and say, well, because that agent right there is incompetent. And it just kind of splatters on everybody involved, and that's something that frustrates me as well.
All right, Michael, thanks for joining us today. Look forward to
You're welcome, Dean.
again.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.